Welcome to the 513 podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nickel, and I am here with a very special guest today. A guy who started out as a undrafted free agent punter, but worked his way up through a training camp battle with two other guys, became the week one starter, and maintained that job for the entire season. My guest today, Ryan Rehkow. How's it going today, man?
It's going well, Nick. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, man.
It's great having you on. It's great seeing you bomb punts 80 yards every game, but
Oh man.
yeah, man, it's great seeing you in Cincinnati colors and just being, what was it, an all-pro rookie punter. Multiple places ranked you as that. So you have a lot of accolades already, but let's get off the question, shall we?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So first question I have for you today is your journey to not only being the starting punter, but to get to Cincinnati is very different compared to most other plays. You were on the Kansas City Chiefs, which people don't like to talk about that team a lot right now. But can you tell us how the process was of why you signed with Kansas City, what happened, and then the process that happened that got you to Cincinnati?
Yeah, it's been a wild journey looking back over the past 12 months. Um, you know, after my senior season ended at BYU, going through the whole draft process, that was an amazing experience. Just blessed to be a part of it, and I learned a lot throughout that. Um, and as the draft ended and I didn't hear my name called on that day, obviously you're a little bit disappointed because you'd love to have that experience. Um, but I was really fortunate. There was a couple teams who were interested in bringing me in and as an undrafted free agent. And it's funny because Cincinnati was one of them. Me and Darren Simmons, we joke about it. It's like, wow, wouldn't it have been a whole lot smoother if I just came to Cincinnati right out of the draft? But I know that there was a specific plan for me, and the way that things went is exactly how they were meant to. But ultimately, went to Kansas City out of the draft just because I felt like it was a good opportunity for me personally. I already knew a couple people there, and for whatever reason, we just felt drawn to try our hand there to go try and win the job. And it was a great learning experience for me just because I had never really been in a true competition for a spot up until that point. I got to BYU and was kind of just the next in line once I got there, and it was something I almost walked into in a sense. So when I got to Kansas City, there was definitely a learning curve to that, just the dynamic of a competition and how you try to figure those things out as you go. But ultimately, they decided to go with Matt, who he was an awesome dude. Got to know him, and it's been great to see him have a great season as well. But once that decision was made, I kind of had that whole summer just to kind of take a step back and just really kind of figure things out, just see where everything was, see what I wanted to do. Um, and it was tough for me. I'm not gonna lie. That probably month and a half where I didn't have a team that I was on, or really it was kind of the dead period for every team in the league. So you're not getting any calls, you're not hearing anything. So that was a tough moment. Um, but it was also amazing. My wife was a rock for me during that time, and it was a short time, but the way we tried to look at it was okay, we were going to have this break regardless whether or not we were on a team. And so use this time, get better, so that way the next opportunity comes, there's no doubt I'm ready for it. I'm ready to go in and take advantage of it. And so a couple days into training camp, I got a call from my agent saying that, hey, the Cincinnati Bengals, they want to bring you in for a workout. And immediately I'm like over the moon, one. But two, in the back of my head, I was like, this is interesting because they already have two punters, and I know both of them pretty well. I knew Austin just throughout the whole draft process. We worked out together down in Arizona, and we were at the combine together in Big 12 Pro Day too, and he was someone I considered a pretty close friend throughout that whole process. And then with Brad, me and Brad had gone to the same coach for probably the past 2 or 3 summers and had spent a pretty decent amount of time together over that whole experience. And so walking into that, goodness, I was like, okay, I want this more than anything, but these are two friends, and I think that made it easier in a sense, just because we all want the best for each other, and obviously everybody wants the job. Everybody's competing and trying to um, be able to be the guy, but also it felt like we were trying to help one another. Everybody was pretty understanding, um, and so as training camp worked itself out and kind of the pieces fell into place. I was luckily able to show enough to want to keep me around. Um, and then it was really unfortunate with Brad's injury. I feel you just never want to see that. You never want to have that be a determining factor, because ultimately you want to win the job when everybody's competing at their best, not because someone is hurt and unable to perform. But ultimately, that did give me the chance to have those first 4 games in the year kind of show Cincinnati, okay, this is what I'm capable of. This is what I'm about. And just really grateful. I feel like God was 100% helping me, not only through those first 4 games, but throughout that entire process in the course of the season, to where I was able to be the guy, and they were able to stick with me and just decide, okay, we want to go with Ryan, and that's the way we're moving forward.
Yeah, man. I mean, the whole process you had with Brad and McNamara in the training camp battle, that was also weird in itself. But that 4-game stretch where they mainly told you that's your position battle right there. If you do good, you get week 5, week 6, and so on. If you do bad, we may look elsewhere.
Yeah.
How was the pressure for that? How'd you handle it? Where you handled it so good, where your first punt was what, 82 yards
Yeah,
against New
that
England?
yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. Um, I think it was really interesting because the first preseason game, me and Brad both punted, um, and I punted pretty well in that game. That's like the first taste of the NFL, just feel of everything. And so Brad got hurt leading into that second week in the preseason, and so from that point, Coach Simmons basically just came up and said, "All right, we don't know how long Brad is going to be out, but the way we're looking at it is you got to be ready for week 1. Like, that's the whole timetable changes. There's no easing your way in. It's just this is the circumstance, and we got to be ready for it." And it was funny because those next 2 preseason games, I did not perform the way that I knew I was capable of, or the way that I would have wanted to, for sure. Um, and so before the first regular season game, you kind of have a little break. We were able to go back to Utah and just being able to talk to everybody, kind of get grounded right before the regular season was about to pick up, and the stress that comes with that. But I felt really calm going into those first 4 games. Obviously, there was pressure, and I felt it, but it was also, what do you have to lose? Like, a month ago, you would have been over the moon to have any opportunity, let alone an opportunity like this. And so it really felt like I was just playing with house money at that point. Like, let it ride. Like, there's nothing. What's the worst that happens? You're back where you were a month ago. And so just being able to kind of have that experience of, okay, I know what the low is, and now let's try and experience the high. Let's see what that can be like. And so those first 4 games, it was definitely a roller coaster, and I feel like you're kind of just feeling your way through it. You kind of black out when you're out on the field anyways. And yeah, after those first 4 games, you kind of look back, you're like, okay, that's like a quarter of the season done. Like, let's just go do that 3 more times. We can do it. And it was definitely a roller coaster, but it was amazing all at the same time.
Yeah, man. I mean, a lot of fans, I remember when you did hit that first punt that just went from one side of the stadium to the other, it felt like Twitter, it was just like 10 minutes straight of like, holy crap, this guy has a cannon of a leg.
Oh man.
And like, because the past few years, it was what like I know you probably know Kevin Huber. His
Yep.
last few years in Cincinnati, you could tell he didn't have the leg that he had. Then it was Drew Chrisman, then Robbins. It was like a lot of in and outs of punters coming in here for a year, then they're out. So people were like very optimistic, but worrying that you hopefully that you were the guy. And with that first punt you had, you threw like any doubt out of the water for every fan. A lot of introductions to a lot of fans. So that's a great introduction for you. But for the entire season, what would you say was the best game you had that made you feel like you can that you are one of the best punters in the league?
Oh gosh. That's so tough. I feel like I still haven't like just fully gone back and like kind of looked at it game by game. I feel like the one that stands out to me though was Carolina. Um, just because I feel like in the course of the game, the circumstances of that game, I feel like that was the time where the punts that I had, they were able to kind of lead to a momentum shift, and kind of swing things in our way. I think I might be looking at that one too because that was our first win, and like that was a big moment for me. I was like, all right, first NFL win. This is amazing. Um, but I feel like just being able to execute in the moments that I did, I feel like those were huge. And yeah, I feel like you just look back at those first couple of games, and you're like, okay, those just seem so big, and then after that, you kind of get a little more comfortable. But I'd have to say Carolina.
Yeah, I think I remember right that you had the one punt in the fourth quarter that like got inside the 10,
Uh huh.
and we got a defensive stop, and that would mainly won us the game there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of fans like love what they saw from you just because the past few years we didn't really have that. Oh, this our offense didn't get a huge drive. We got to rely on the defense, but a lot of the time the ball would be at like we get punted and be at like the 40 or the 30, but you would get to the 20 or 10, which are countless examples from the season where that's exactly what you did, and it saved a lot of time or points off the board. So yeah, fans are happy to see what you can do for hopefully lots of years to come. But the
Absolutely.
next question I have for you is how have you been learning with Darren Simmons?
Oh, how have I been learning with Darren? I feel like you can't not learn with Darren. I feel like someone who has been around the league, who is that experienced, who has seen everything that he has, there's so much to learn. Um, and I really, it was funny because during the draft process, he was one of the coaches that I talked to the most and just had a really good feel for. Like, okay, I feel like this guy could really help me get to where I want to be. And once I came in during training camp, I feel like he kind of saw the potential in me, and we had a really good talk. Just like we want the same things. Our goals are as high as each other's. We want to be the best, and I feel like too that Darren has helped me a lot, just in terms of man. I could literally go on. I feel like the one thing that he's preached to me the most is the best ability is repeatability. Like you can have the biggest leg, you could have the most perfect form, but if you can't do it on a consistent basis, what does it matter? And so I feel like we spent so many times out there in the stadium for a practice out on the practice field, and we film everything, we go over everything, and so just the constant dissection of that and saying, okay, what leads to a good punt? What things do we want to try and avoid? I feel like he's helped me a ton just in terms of having the big picture, but finding what are the little parts that build up to that and that lead to the result that we want. I feel like that's one of the main things. And then just you learn in the terms of a course of a game, okay, time and situation, what is expected. When we're with the field goal team, what are the things to look for? What are the things to pay attention to? All of that, I feel like I've grown in leaps and bounds over that first year. And it was definitely a lot to take in, and Darren's had to be patient with me through some moments for sure. But he really has. He's helped me grow in a ton of ways.
Yeah, man. I mean, Darren is probably one of the most positive coaches I hear about in any NFL team, head coach, coordinator, whatever. He's one of the best I hear about for like a special teams coordinator. So you're learning from one of the best for sure. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So next question I have is what are you looking to improve on for next season that you felt like you could have done a little better with this season?
Yeah, I feel like I'm always striving to be more consistent. I would love to raise the floor a little bit. It's kind of the saying, like, you're only as good as your worst ball. And so I feel like that's something that if you are a punter, you're constantly just trying to say, okay, how can I make my worst ball better than everybody else's? So that's just me going back through, maybe tweaking some things in my form and finding what's most comfortable. But I think another area is just in the plus 50, kind of in those pin punt situations, pinning teams, not just inside the 20, but let's see if we can pin them inside the 10. I feel like that's an area that I'm confident in, but I didn't show it as much as I would have liked to this year. And so kind of just going back to basics with that and getting more comfortable so that when we do have the chance, we don't have a lot of short fields just because the offense is so good. They're usually going and scoring. But in those circumstances, when we have that opportunity, really pinning teams back and just setting the defense up in as good a position as possible.
Yeah, man. I mean, I get what you're saying with like inside the 10 and the consistency. I don't even remember what your quote unquote worst ball was. So
Yeah.
I mean maybe I look back and see it, but I can't remember it right now. But all right. So the last question I have for you is you're a rookie that came into the facility in July, in which in the middle of the season, the coaches decided, hey, let's bring back the ping pong tables into the locker room. So my question to you is how have you been with the ping pong tables? Because I know that's one of the most used things in the entire locker room.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I feel like there are some people who love the ping pong tables, and for me, this year, like I couldn't have been too focused on that. Obviously, we'll play a game every now and then. But man, I love watching people play ping pong. I love seeing them do that. But for me, I'm like, okay, I'll watch a little bit and then I got to go back to the stuff I'm working on. But I think it definitely brings a better energy to the locker room. You see guys just having fun, kind of interacting with each other, and I think that did help a lot.
Who do you play ping pong with whenever you do get the chance?
Oh, I want to say the only two people I played in ping pong this year was Evan and Cade. I think that was it. And it would be maybe after our Saturday meetings right before we headed to the hotel or something.
Do you plan on getting more involved with it when you come back for OTAs and mini camp and whatnot?
Oh, maybe OTAs just because you're still a little more relaxed. But I mean, once the season's going, I'll watch and I'll cheer people on. But I got other stuff I got to do.
All right. All right. Well, that's all I got for you today, Ryan. Thanks for coming on. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the 513 podcast. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow Ryan on all his social media platforms, and I will see you next time.